Hi, I'm Dave with Halloween Year Round, and I'm joined today by my lovely fiancée, Jess. Say hi.
Hi.
And today we are here to talk about Saw.
Best horror franchise ever.
I will actually agree to that. Saw has always been my favorite, with Child's Play a close second.
Insidious, close second.
See, I thought you liked Insidious more than Saw.
Yeah.
So which is it? She's revising her answer now.
They're kind of both amazing.
They are. I'll agree to that completely.
Insidious is #1 in paranormal. Saw is #1 in like gory, like yucky, bloody shit.
Okay, I like that. Gory, yucky, bloody shit. A new subgenre, also known as torture porn.
Yes.
But it's funny, Saw actually kind of holds a special place for the two of us.
Yeah.
You want to tell the story or want me to tell the story?
So, I'll tell it.
She's going to tell the story.
I'm going to tell it. So, basically, we had just started dating, maybe like...
Few weeks. It was early.
It was like within a month. And I had mentioned to him that I saw the first Saw movie years ago, but I never saw any of the other ones.
And I knew that this had to be remedied.
So he's like, all right, well, I know what we're doing for this weekend. So he puts the second one on, and I'm like, wow, that was really good.
Now, I thought it was only after I put on the second one that you said, hey, let's watch the rest for the rest of the weekend. Wasn't that how it went?
Well, yeah, I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Let me tell the story.
I'm letting her tell the story.
So, after the second one, I was like, yeah, we have to put the third one on. And the third one, and then so on and so on, and then that was what we ended up doing literally the rest of the weekend. One after another.
You can't stop with these movies. It's like one long soap opera. That's kind of what I've always loved about it. It's one long, continuous story, which is why we're here today. May 15th was supposed to be the release date for Spiral from the Book of Saw. Which was...
Unfortunately, we're in this dumb quarantine.
I mean, the quarantine itself isn't dumb. The virus is dumb. Quarantine's important.
Yeah. Whatever.
She says so begrudgingly. No, just today was the day that Spiral was supposed to come out, and at first when I heard it was coming out, I wasn't too sold on it. I'm like, wait, Chris Rock's gonna write a Saw movie? Is it like a parody? Because I love Chris Rock, but just he's more a comedian. But I found out that he's a huge fan of the Saw series. I saw in an interview with Lee Wynell for Invisible Man, he was talking about how he met Chris Rock at a party, and Chris Rock kind of ignored him until someone told him, no, that's the dude that wrote Saw. And then Chris Rock was like all over him, asking him a million questions.
So I guess he's a big fan like us.
Yes. So it was when I heard he was going to be in it with Samuel Jackson, and it was really when I heard that Darren Lynn Bousman was going to direct it. I was sold. Bousman directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. 3 of my favorites, arguably 3 of the best ones in the series. Nobody aside
3 is my favorite.
Aside from perhaps Lee Wynell or James Wan, nobody understands Saw better than Darren Lynn Bousman. So I was so excited to see it. Today was supposed to be the day.
It would have been date night.
It would have been. And now we got to wait till I think next year. I think it's been postponed till 2021.
Seriously?
Yeah. Which sucks, but here we are. So that is why we're going to count down the top 10 most interesting Saw characters.
Top 10.
Now, disclaimer. There's a disclaimer.
There is a disclaimer.
There is a disclaimer. John Kramer, a.k.a. Jigsaw, is...
obviously number 1.
Obviously is number 1. So we've decided, and again, this may be controversial, we've decided to eliminate Jigsaw from the running. Just because we know he's the most interesting, we know he's number 1, so this is actually the top 10 most interesting Saw characters. Besides Jigsaw.
Besides him.
Besides him is correct. So, darling, would you like to take it away?
Starting off our list at number 10 is none other than Mrs. Jigsaw herself, Jill Tuck, who we first see in Saw 3. Right. In a flashback where you see her doing romantic things with Jigsaw.
Well, they're like on a walk in the park, and Opie from Saw 2 is randomly there, which is never explained or addressed.
Then you see her again in Saw 4, when you see what tragically happened to them. So they lost their baby, which is terrible. And Jill suffers that, but also at the same time, she's suffering from losing her husband, which is terrible.
Not losing him in death, but kind of losing the person that he was. That
she fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When he decides to start, when he starts with Cecil.
Yeah. When he starts testing people's wills to live. Eventually, she does come around.
Yeah, you know, it's funny how in the beginning she's kind of horrified by what he's doing, but at some point, we're not sure when, she takes up his cause.
Right. So she comes around, and she's actually the one who puts Hoffman in his test.
Number 9, Dr. Lawrence Gordon, MD. So, Dr. Gordon, you know, just for, I know that you didn't you saw the movies later after they had already come out.
Right.
For those of us that were following along as they were coming out, Dr. Gordon was the biggest mystery in the world. Because he crawls right at the end of the first Saw, and then we don't see him again until the 7th movie. He starts out as kind of like the portrait of upper class privilege. Everything wrong with America, you know, the doctor who is neglectful of his patients and
cheating on his wife.
Yeah, with a medical student, no less. And Jigsaw really calls him out and puts him in his place, literally, when he chains him there. And Dr. Gordon makes that transformation where he's forced to confront what he's willing to do for his family. And he's willing to saw off his own foot.
Which is what he does.
And even though I was a bit disappointed with what they did when they brought him back in Saw 7, the fact that he becomes really the closest thing to the true apprentice of Jigsaw, the only one who follows the rules, you know, I think that's worthy.
Now we're at number 8. This one is Jeff Denlon. I really wanted him to be on this list.
Jeff, you fought so hard.
First of all,
for Jeff. Tell us why.
Saw 3 is my favorite of all of them.
Fair enough.
It is because of Jeff. He at the beginning of the movie, you see that he's grieving. Obviously, something terrible happened to his son. He was, somebody hit him by a car.
And it was a drunk driver, no less. You know that's even more heartbreaking.
I mean, we're parents ourselves.
I can't even imagine.
And the grief that I can't even imagine. But then he ends up in a saw trap. And from the first woman in the ice room, he at first is like, no, I'm not going to really save her. He's thinking about it. He's waiting it out. And by the time he decides that he wants to save her, it's too late.
She's already a popsicle.
Right.
To his credit, on not just her, but all 3 of Jeff's tests, he does decide to save them.
It's just always too late.
He takes way too long.
He's very slow.
He saves the judge only to accidentally kill him later, which
I thought was weird.
But he fails his final test and he doesn't forgive Jigsaw. So doesn't that clash with what you're saying about how he always eventually comes around and forgives?
Yes and no. And the reason I say yes and no is because, so with the other people, yes, they had to do with his son dying.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also tell that it had been at least months, if not years, since that had happened. So it's been some time, wounds starting to heal. You know, he realizes, I need to try to get these people to live. I forgive them. But the point is, he did forgive them. And I think that that shows a huge growth in character. Now, when it comes to Jigsaw himself, the reason I think he didn't is because that was more of something that just happened.
Number 7, William Easton. He feels like a guy that, in the beginning, he's spewing so much nonsense about why it's okay and why it's justified for him to drop people's healthcare policies and drop their coverages, resulting in them dying. And my man Jigsaw takes that and he's like, you know what? I'm going to put you face to face with these people. And
with these conditions.
And right away, he completely abandons his policy. You know, when he's faced with the choice between letting 2 people die, he saves the one with the family who's not healthy. He had a huge change of heart. You know, it was one thing when he's dropping someone's coverage when they're just a name on a spreadsheet. It's something else entirely when that person is right in front of him and is about to die. And ultimately, you know, William, he goes through those tests and comes out a changed man. I think that by the end of Saw 6, he's legitimately done with that career, with that life. Which is why it's all the more tragic that he dies so brutally.
Now we have number 6, Special Agent Peter Strahm.
He's the perfect foil for Hoffman. Hoffman is the representation of this corrupt system, this corrupt cop that just, with his brutality and with his corruption, goes so far as to become a Jigsaw apprentice. And Strahm is like that good guy cop that won't stop till he gets his suspect.
Right, and he is on Hoffman's tail.
One of my favorite movies is The Dark Knight, and one of my favorite lines from that, the Joker. Remember when the Joker says, in their last moments, people show you who they really are.
Yeah.
And in Strahm's last moment...
Yo, he was like trying to fight out of that. The room was closing in on him. He was trying with all of his will. I mean, you gotta give the man credit.
The whole time yelling, I know who you are! I know! He almost feels like Hoffman's arch nemesis. And I feel like we gotta give him props too. His escape at the beginning of Saw 5. So, Peter Strahm, you fought to the end, and for that, mad respect. Number 5, Mr. Hindle, or as they called him around the hospital, Zep. So let's just get this out of the way. You will probably agree with me. Zep is without a doubt the creepiest person in any Saw movie ever.
Yeah, he
Zep is
takes
like...
his test or his game to the extreme.
That's the thing, is like when you watch the first movie for the first time, he's really just a red herring. He's the guy that the movie wants you to think is the villain.
Yeah.
And you think
and
he is.
He plays it well. Like, he's actually enjoying it.
That's what I mean. And then when you go back and you see that, no, actually, he himself was playing a game, you know, because Jigsaw poisoned him. He was forced to do those things.
Right.
He seems to really enjoy it. Like that really unsettling moment when, remember, he takes the stethoscope to little Diana, and he's listening to her heartbeat fast because he's, like, brandishing the gun and she's terrified. Like, what a sicko. But, and that's, again, why I wanted him on this list. Zep's the kind of guy that I feel like, you get the sense from the first Saw movie that he's a guy that often gets overlooked. And for the first time in his life, he felt real power. And boy, did it go to his head.
And he relished in it.
No, but, you know, I loved Michael Emerson on Lost as Ben, where he was, again, an equally creepy villain. And even now, if you guys watch the show Evil on CBS, he plays Leland, a sort of like a servant of the devil, where he is, you guessed it, really, really creepy.
Here we have it, number 4, SWAT Commander Daniel Rigg. I like that he is put through his own test, but in a way, he's also putting other people through tests.
He could have called the cops.
That's what I'm saying.
But he puts Ivan in that game, that test himself, and it's really kind of disturbing. He probably has the noblest intention. He wants to save everyone.
That's not a bad thing, but
he also
can't always save everyone.
But it puts him down that dark path, and I think it really reminds you of that old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
I think that really perfectly summarizes Rigg's journey. I also, on a completely unrelated note, with Rigg, I love how this series can take a character who's kind of a minor background character in one movie, and then make them the protagonist in another. Starting off our top 3 is none other than Detective Eric Matthews. So,
again,
Eric Matthews.
All you have to do is listen.
Listen to what he says. Eric Matthews spends all of Saw 2 having probably the most interesting conversation of his life with Jigsaw as they're going back and forth about the ideology of it. And again, just for that, that's why Saw 2 has been my favorite since the beginning. Matthews kind of seems like the perfect arch enemy of Jigsaw. He is the exact opposite. John Kramer is methodical, he's very rational, and he's always thinking about the long game. He's playing chess 10 steps ahead.
Seriously.
Then you have Matthews, who is impulsive, very short-tempered, and doesn't really think very far beyond, let me just beat up this suspect to get a confession out of him, or plant evidence to get a conviction. Like I said, he's an interesting foil to Jigsaw, but then he goes through more suffering than any other character in that series, and that is Detective Matthews. Number 2, Detective Mark Hoffman. I feel like he's a villain you love to hate.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have the philosophy of Jigsaw. He doesn't have... He's kind of a brute. I mean, Jigsaw even says in that flashback scene in Saw 6, he's like, "Do you like the way brutality feels, Mark?" And he kind of does.
Yeah, he just likes to watch the pain people go through. I
mean, he's a sadist through and through.
Yeah.
And he's diabolical, he's maniacal, I'll admit, as much as I love the series, the later sequels, the quote-unquote Hoffman trilogy, 5, 6, and 7, they're not the best compared to the earlier movies.
No.
But Hoffman really makes up for it. So that is why he is at our number 2 spot.
Number 2.
And, well, there's only one left.
Number 1.
Would you like to take it away?
Yeah, so our number 1 spot is... Dun, dun, dun.
We need dramatic music.
Amanda!
Amanda Young. She's clearly traumatized. She clearly had a troubled life. We knew that she was a drug addict.
Yeah.
You know, we can assume that she's faced a lot of struggles in her life, and that, you know, up until that point, it wasn't a very pleasant life.
Right.
And she says that Jigsaw helped her. I don't know that he did in the long run. I almost feel like he set her up for failure.
Because if you guys remember her first trap, she literally had to kill the person that was in the room with her in order to save herself.
So it's like, for your first test, you have to murder someone, but then I despise murderers and you need to stop murdering people, and if you don't, you die.
Right.
I feel like that's kind of a mixed message.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like,
I feel bad for her.
Was she betrayed by Jigsaw? This was a guy that she's really emotionally dependent on.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's kind of like
it's sort of
a BDSM relationship.
Yeah, like you look at Hoffman and Jigsaw, and they're like co-workers.
They're on the same level.
There's like this professionalism to them. It's like Jigsaw is Hoffman's supervisor, but with Amanda and Jigsaw, it's almost like, you know, he's the dominant, she's the submissive.
Yeah.
Especially that line in Saw 2 where he says, "You will give everything to me."
That's what I was referring to.
Every cell in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like she was so dependent upon him, and I feel like he did her a real disservice. I feel like in the end, you know, by the end of Saw 3, she even admits nobody changes, nobody is reborn. She's referring to herself. She's in agony.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in Saw 3, she can't stand to see Jigsaw show any affection towards Dr. Denlon and not her.
Yeah.
That drives her nuts. And there's that scene, it's difficult to watch, where she resorts back to self-harm.
Yeah.
In Saw 3. And apparently that was a scene that Shawnee Smith really had to fight for. The studio did not want to include that. And Shawnee Smith told Darren Lynn Bousman and Lionsgate, she's like, no, we need to see her. Amanda is in agony.
Right.
And we need to see that to fully understand her character. Whereas Hoffman, I think, you know, as we said before, Hoffman just enjoyed watching people suffer and just enjoyed inflicting pain out of pure sadism. I think Amanda inflicted pain almost to purge the pain that she was feeling. Well, that's our list. Thanks again for joining us. Tell us in the comments, who were your favorite characters? Who did we miss? Who were the least interesting characters? We will see them next week.
Next week?
With something.
Not sure what.
We're still, I'm going to be honest, we're still figuring out this channel.
This is only our third video.
It's only the third video. And what we do next week is anybody's guess. Do you have a good suggestion for next week's video? Drop it in the comments below.
Sure. Why not?
And on that note,
good night.
Good night. Goodbye. Live or die. You make the choice.
Kind of.